Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Spring Virtual Homeownership Forum. My name's Tony Lee, and I'm the Business Development Specialist here at Alabama Housing. Before we get started, I want to go over some housekeeping items so you will know how to participate in today's event. At any time during the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to submit your question to today's presenters. To do so, just type your question into the chat box. As time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Make sure you stay to the end because at the end, we're going to have a couple of fun giveaways. We will be recording this webinar and will share the link after the event. Without further ado, I'd now like to introduce Stuart Norton with Alabama Center of Real Estate, who's a data analytics coordinator. Stuart is the data analytics coordinator at the Alabama Center of Real Estate, or ACRE, housed within the University of Alabama's Culverhouse College of Business. Norton frequently writes and speaks on residential market trends in markets across the state. He creates the center's residential sales forecast, manages the production of ACRE's residential market reports, and hosts the Real Estate Matters podcast. Okay, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us, and you can begin.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that introduction, and thank you to the AHFA for including me in today's webinar. Very honored to be here. I'll go ahead and get my screen share going. All right, so I just wanted to begin today just by looking at some recent housing headlines. If you've been, paying attention to, it's pretty hard to miss what's going on in real estate markets right now. We know that prices are rising. Inventory is actually continually tightening, actually hitting a record low in both Alabama and the United States in February. So that second headline, you can see, the spring housing market, the lowest supply on record. And we'll see, will we get that usual bump in listings, this spring, we'll see when the March data comes in. Also mortgage rates, rising a little bit. And of course, a lot of the sales activity that we've seen has been driven by low mortgage rates. But at the same time, we'll talk about, one thing that's holding back housing supply and mortgage rates, strong incentive to refinance. And so many people are refinancing instead of moving. Of course, the low rates do enhance your buyers' purchasing power, but they are expected to rise a little bit by the end of the year. And then you've probably seen a lot of headlines about, the housing boom. But one of the first things I wanted to touch on is how, yes, it is very different than the last go around. And so one question you see from, one kind of obvious question is another housing bubble in the making. And so let's take a look at some of the unique supply and demand dynamics that are currently working in the housing market. And so generally speaking, we're seeing pretty strong home price gains. We've seen that in repeat sales indexes and also in median price and average prices. When compared to 1 year ago, we'll see those actual figures in a minute. But generally speaking, home sales prices are rising due to strong underlying fundamentals rather than speculation. Of course, there's always a little bit of speculation going on at any given time, but not nearly to the degree during the last housing downturn or during the last economic downturn that was led to a large, the housing crisis. And so how is today's market different from the last housing bubble? Well, lending standards are much tighter. Talk to, anyone in the mortgage business, it's a very different lending atmosphere than in the mid 2000s. Makes me think of that Ditech commercial, where the guy's on his riding lawnmower and says, talking about, he's got a new car, the 4-bedroom house. How does he do it all? Well, he's in debt up to his eyeballs. just kind of laughing it off. But yeah, much tighter lending standards, much more oversight, and generally less speculation in today's market than roughly 15 years ago. And so again, demand, we're seeing prices rise because demand is up. People are looking for more housing space, and low mortgage rates enhance their buying power, offsetting some of those price gains that we've seen. And also, supply just continues to tighten. We entered the pandemic with relatively tight inventory, and it's just continued to tighten even more. The most recent data that we have in February, there was a 44% reduction in listings across the state of Alabama. And of course, that's going to have significant effects on price. And so when you think about how tight inventory is, it's, maybe it's surprising that prices haven't risen more than they have, considering that demand is consistently elevated while supply continues to remain stubbornly low. What if there was a sudden correction in home prices? And again, I think this is very unlikely in the near term. Of course, we'd have diminished home equity, which, could have, kind of a downward effect on GDP, but it would not be nearly as severe as what we saw in 2008, when households were much more leveraged.
Oops.
Sorry, I'm getting a message that it's muted. Never mind. I guess y'all can hear me. That's everything good? All right. And so what has caused this recent surge in demand? Well, the sudden increase in demand combined with extremely low inventory has driven home prices higher. We're looking at about 14% in the state of Alabama year over year, about 15% nationwide. So we're looking at double-digit price appreciation, which many people, obviously that's no surprise to people working in the industry. What's driving this surge in demand? Well, remote work and remote learning. It applies to some markets more than others, especially with, as public school policies vary across the state. But generally speaking, your average person is spending much more time at home, at least, especially, I think about this time last year when all this began, but more time spent at home. Basically, since June of last year, we've seen there was a dip in home sales, not surprisingly in April and May in Alabama and nationwide, as many areas were under lockdown orders. But as those lockdowns eased, we saw a big rebound in demand. This is in June of last year that's continued through February and likely to continue through March. And so people are just looking for more housing space because they're spending more time at home for a variety of reasons. More apartment renters are entering the market. And again, this is more of a national trend, but it's also true in the state of Alabama. And a lot of that has to do with demographic headwinds. The millennial generation, one of the larger generations out there, many of them are reaching the age where starting families and buying homes is expected. And so combine all of this, and then of course add in mortgage rates. Even though they've ticked up a little bit recently, they're still, historically speaking, incredibly low. Hard to believe that you can lock in, a 30-year fixed mortgage for, in the neighborhood of 3%. Talk to anyone who's borrowed money, especially, in the early 80s, and I don't think you'll, and it's just amazing. I'm just continually surprised by, low rates. It's hard to underestimate the impact that low rates are having on the market. But at the same time, and so let's look at the other side. So we know that demand has remained elevated consistently for several months now. And so why does supply remain stubbornly low? So we can look at some demographics, and many baby boomers aren't downsizing as you would expect them to with historical trends. Maybe they need that extra space to work from home. Maybe they have, adult children moving back home. Some of them might be fleeing expensive urban markets, trying to, you don't need that expensive urban, you don't need to commute to work in that large city, And so we're just not seeing as much downsizing as you would normally expect. Also, many homeowners have decided to renovate rather than move. Just look at, and I believe one of our later presenters is going to touch on material prices, but just go price lumber at your local Lowe's. I mean, it's increased very significantly. And so, and of course, but many homeowners, instead of moving, they're deciding to renovate. Also, many current homeowners with low rates, of course, low rates do incentivize people to go out and purchase, giving them more purchasing power. But it can also have an effect by restraining supply because, pretty much, most people with a mortgage are looking to refinance and get today's low rates and save themselves some interest. Also, because of forbearance programs, fewer foreclosures and short sales, and that is also limiting supply. And so the result, there's very, significant pressure on the relatively few homes that are out there listed for sale. And so just what's the overall result? Selling faster and at significantly higher prices. And we're going to take a look and see how at the data and how those prices vary across the state. And so median sales, so right here you can see that, in the state of Alabama, the most recent month, looking at basically 14.5% gains in median sales price. Nationally, it's very, very close to the national numbers, looking at about a 16% gain nationwide, according to the most recent NAR existing home sales index. Also, if you look at repeat sales, the Case-Shiller repeat sales index, and so this is different than a median sales price index because looking at the same home, what's the gain in price if it's the same home being sold several years down the road. And so a repeat sales index, notice how that's still in the 11% range. And so there has been, if you look at that first bullet point, there's a buyer preference has shifted. Kind of a lot of the home sales that are taking place now are in the higher end of the market. And so year over year price gains and median sales prices are exaggerated a little bit by the shifting buy preference towards larger homes. But again, if you just look at repeat sale indices, you can see that, prices are rising pretty much any way you slice it. And so, and again, my opinion, this is more due to strong market fundamentals, more so than speculation. And so, long explanation short, are we creating another housing bubble? I really don't think so. Let's look at some of the data from metro areas across the state. I like to show this one just because, just to see, where are the home sales taking place across the state. And again, this is just year to date through February. So we're looking at, January and February of this year, just total home sales as reported by the MLS groups in these different areas. Of course, a lot of this, not surprising, a lot of this is driven by population. You would expect a majority of the home sales to happen, or Birmingham, Hoover, 1.1 million people in the metro area compared to about 500,000 people in the Huntsville metro area. But there are some outliers, notice like Baldwin County, for example, a lot of home sales activity in that area, which has a significantly smaller population than, say, Montgomery or Mobile. Of course, a lot of second home sales in that area, and those condo sales or second home sales are included in the total. Also, a lot of new construction in that area as well. And so again, I just like to show this just to see, where are the home sales taking place? And of course, not surprisingly, a lot of that's driven, just by population, with a few exceptions. What about sales growth? Just look at year-over-year sales growth rates. Notice that one of the big takeaways here is that all markets except two saw, growing sales activity in February. The two that did have declines, relatively slight in Tuscaloosa. And a significant, we did get the March data in recently, and that did rebound in March for Tuscaloosa. And so notice how, this is Montgomery, that's significant, 32% more home sales in Montgomery so far, in February of this year compared to February of last year. Also, you can compare the statewide average, about 14.5% growth in sales statewide versus about 9% nationwide. And so notice, we are seeing, this is why we talk about, demand is up, because we're just seeing it in the closed sales data. You look, just comparing it to 1 year ago. If we look at year to date, obviously these rates, anything can happen in 1 month. And so note, like, for example, Tuscaloosa was, down slightly in February, but on the year, up about 10% on the year. And again, it's just interesting to compare statewide about 16% versus the nationwide average of 12%. And another big takeaway here, all metro areas are up on the year in sales. Of course, this is just 2 months, February, all except one, the Gadsden area with a slight decline. And so this has been one of the, in hindsight, I guess it's not so surprising that, the pandemic resulted in the significant housing boom that has continued, for almost a year now. And so very different than when this, first started. And also just think housing has been, the housing sector, as a whole has been one of the stronger performing segments of the economy. If we look at sales price growth rates, when you consider, price, as mentioned earlier, prices, we're looking at significant growth in median sales prices, and again, this is happening across the nation. It's happening in markets across the state. Notice all markets but one showing a gain from 1 year ago during February. And again, I would like just to make a note about sample size. How big is the, in the Gadsden area, we're looking at roughly, 80 transactions. And so some of your, larger, some of the smaller markets can have larger swings in price growth because it's just, it's a smaller sample size. But some of the larger markets, like Birmingham, the largest in terms of total sales, 12% gain during February. Statewide, 13% gain. And so, again, this, a lot of these price gains are just rooted in we're looking at record low inventory. We're going to see, take a closer look at inventory, but of course, this does create some affordability concerns. On one side of the coin, you have, rising equity for current homeowners. That's a plus. But at the same time, you also have the other side of the coin, you have affordability concerns, especially for your first-time buyers. And I would expect these growth rates to moderate somewhat, as the year progresses. And again, these are just median sales price on the year to date. And so again, a big takeaway here, all markets except one are up on the year. And I would expect the decline we're seeing in the Baldwin County area to reverse course as we get more data in. But again, just look at, price growth. We're looking at about 13% year to date statewide compared to about 15% nationwide. And so it's just interesting to see how the statewide data is kind of matching up somewhat with the trends that we're seeing across the nation. This is just a price breakdown. How do median sales prices vary across the state? This is probably not news to anyone on the call here, but I like to put the national average just to add some context. And so even the most expensive market in the state of Alabama is significantly below the national median sales price, which matches up with what we do an affordability index. And generally speaking, real estate in Alabama is more affordable than the nation as a whole. But you can just see how prices vary across the state. A lot of new construction, in some of the more expensive markets across the state, especially, Lee County, the Athens area just outside of Huntsville. Almost 40% of all home sales in the Athens area in any given month are new construction. And then, but again, I just like to show this to see how, how do median sales prices vary across the state? And then, of course, we have some of our more affordable markets, Gadsden, Anniston, Oxford, Florence, Muscle Shoals. how does average days on market look? We can see that this is just average days on market as reported to us during February. Not surprising to see some of the larger metro areas like Huntsville and Birmingham having a shorter sales cycle than areas like Gadsden or Dothan. But one interesting thing to see here is that all of these markets are reporting homes selling faster than 1 year ago. And so even though that 110 days might seem like a lot at first glance in the Dothan area, that still does represent a significant reduction from 1 year ago. And then notice during February, properties statewide selling a little bit, 3 days faster than the national average. Usually it's the other way around. Usually our statewide average, we have a little bit longer sales cycle than the nationwide average. But as we're about to see, we also have extreme inventory shortages are even more extreme here in the state. And so just to wrap it up here, and have a note to wrap it up at 9:57, so just to keep us on time here. But properties listed for sale. Notice all markets are, we're seeing inventory declines from, the metro area with the smallest decline, Calhoun County at 14%, and in the Mobile area at almost 65%. And so the big takeaway, all markets across the state are dealing with tight inventory. It's actually at a record low. We went below 10,000 listings in the state for the first time ever during February. Hopefully that will, usually we see that, usually we see a little spring bump, as, people list their properties for sale. And, now that more people are vaccinated, people might feel more comfortable listing their property. It's been almost a year now. So hopefully we'll see, these inventory, hopefully we'll see some inventory gains, which could help lead to, those strong, that strong growth in sales prices, moderate down somewhat. And so again, nationwide average 30% decrease nationwide and 44% here in the state. And just the last one right here, months of supply. And so notice all markets, you basically have, less than 1 month of supply in two of our metro areas, Florence and Huntsville. And even, Anniston, Oxford, significantly below equilibrium there. And so, yeah, we're seeing sellers markets across the state, but some to a more degree than others. All right, and to keep us on time, that's basically, I'll stop right here. And again, thank you all. Thanks to the AHFA for including me in today's forum, and look forward to your questions at the end of today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, for all that information you just given us.
You're welcome, Danny. Thanks again for having me.
The next speaker we have is Blake Corder with Home Builders Association of Alabama. Blake is both partner of the Builders Group, LLC, a residential and light commercial contractor, as well as a broker of Corder Real Estate, Inc., both based out of Tuscaloosa and operations from one end of the state to the other. After graduating in 2002 from the University of Alabama with a BS in business and accounting, he entered the real estate and construction industry full-time after nearly a lifetime of experience surrounding the industry. A member of both the Home Builders Association of Tuscaloosa and the Huntsville-Madison County Builders Association, Blake has chaired the HBAT's Investment Property Owners Council Membership Committee and the Parade of Homes Committee. In 2011, he served as HBAT president. He has represented the HBAA as a national director to the National Association of Home Builders. He is currently serving as the 2021 HBAA president. In addition to his involvement with the HBAA, Blake currently serves on the board here at Alabama Housing Finance Authority, the Rachel Williams Foundation, the HBAT Charities, the Tuscaloosa Association of Realtors, and the Finance Committee of the Tuscaloosa Association of Realtors. Blake, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to the information you're going to provide.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks to the Housing Finance Authority for putting this together. My comments are going to be pretty brief. I don't have a fancy slideshow like Stuart did there. I'm going to have to talk to him, see if he can hook me up with one of those. But I just wanted to give everybody that's attending, and thanks to the attendees as well for tuning in here. I just want to give everybody kind of a current outlook of construction in case you've been hiding under a rock. Materials have gone up, prices have gone up. Carrie with the Housing Finance Authority asked earlier if we were building houses, and the answer is yes and no. We're trying to build them as quickly and it's not as cheaply, but as economically as we can. But we've really had some materials issues with shortages and pricing. It's been a perfect confluence of bad events. We've had an ice storm in Texas that's taken down a resin plant. We've had shipping containers over in the Pacific that have experienced extreme weather. Containers have gone overboard. The port at Los Angeles is backed up with a backlog, and COVID. So what we're seeing, just to kind of give you an example, what we're seeing on the construction side is a standard 3/4 inch OSB, which is what you hear a lot of people just say, OSB's up. Well, 3/4 of an inch is what we use for sheathing and roof decking and things like that. So in March 2020, the wholesale price of that was $4.80 for a 4x8 sheet. March 19, 2021, it was $10.25. Now that's wholesale. My real world experience is it was probably $8 to $10 back in March 2020, and now at Lowe's, the local Lowe's, is $40 a sheet. So you can imagine what that's doing to home prices. And it's not just OSB. I'm building my personal house. It's got a basement. The most random item ever is a basement tie that costs $1. And one of those ships, the containers that fell off of a ship over in the Pacific, held a bunch of these ties. So my house is sitting there. Construction's delayed and costs continue to increase, but it's touched everything from OSB, framing lumber, again, siding, anything made out of plastics, having appliance shortages, you name it. Every facet of the house right now is either on back order or the price is increasing. So what does that mean for the total price of the house? Well, what we're seeing is a 15 to 20% increase year over year in cost. We're not making any more money. I know in a lot of local markets, y'all probably see builders raising prices. We're raising them, I shouldn't say weekly, but definitely monthly. And that's just due to materials increases. I mean, we're completely exposed from the time we start a house until, potentially someone brings us a contract. Could be 30 to 60 days. And in this environment with the increases we're seeing, that's a lot of exposure for us. So we're trying to stay ahead of it with price increases, just because we know everything's going up. Copper, got a notice this week that copper has gone up that, is used for wiring in all the houses. So just kind of an example, what we're trying to do personally in our business, and I think other builders are, is we're trying to stockpile some things. We bought 3 truckloads of OSB earlier this year at $20 a sheet. Like I said, now it's at $40 a sheet. That allows us to try to stay ahead of some of these price increases. The reality is we can't buy enough OSB that we use, and we can't buy every facet of materials that we use in a house. So unfortunately, we're going to have to pass along. What's the good news? The good news is Stuart just told us that interest rates are going to stay relatively low. So that's going to continue to be a tailwind for us. Also, what that's doing to our industry is we're reluctant to give pricing. If people bring in custom builds, especially intricate custom builds, our lag times, 60 days right now, just to get them pricing and get them through the system. We're also telling people, hey, this price is good literally for today. If you come back in 2 weeks, we can just about guarantee it's going to be a higher price. That's turning some people away. I think the more we can do things like this Zoom call and get the information out there, the better off it is for consumers to know, to set expectations for them. As a result of all these increasing prices, we've run into some appraisal issues. And so we're trying to stay ahead of that. We're trying to get in touch with our appraisers, show them on paper what our cost increase are, let them know that it's not just profit driven. So that's been a challenge. The other things that are going on with the state home builders, just going to touch on a couple items, and then I'll turn it over back to Tony. We are having a shortage of skilled workforce. The way we're addressing that is we're starting plumbing and trade schools, plumbing and framing trade schools. An example of that in North Alabama Home Building Academy, they launched in January 2020, and they've completed 10 classes with 100 students graduating. And what we're trying to stress from a construction standpoint is, all these young minds that come through high school, some of them have different paths. Not everyone's necessarily best placed in a 4-year college. So what we're trying to show them is an opportunity to be business owners and to do hard work and work in our industry and be extremely successful. There's success stories all over the state of plumbers and electricians that are making great money and have a great quality of life. So that's what we're trying to get out in front of our young minds, and we're actually starting to go down the ladder, hopefully into middle schools, and try to start the conversation there. The other thing from a state perspective that I think you guys may be interested in is we just started doing continuing ed for our home builders. It's something that we felt like we've needed for a long time, just as a pathway to professionalism. And so we're requiring 6 hours for licensed builders under the age of 60. And like I said, we feel like that's needed to create a sense of professionalism in our industry. Other than that, I think Stuart touched on a lot of it. He touched a little bit on new construction. I don't have anything else. I'll stick around and feel free to ask me any questions at the end, but I'll turn it back over to you, Tony.
Okay, thank you, Blake, for all that valuable information you just provided. Our next speaker will be Tom Horn, who is the owner of Tom Horn Appraisals. Tom's appraisal career began in 1990 when he was looking for a change from working in the consumer finance field. During his time as a loan officer, he was exposed to the appraisal profession. At the current time, he holds the SRA designation from the Appraisal Institute. He concentrates in the area of single family, vacant land, 2 to 4 family, and condominium appraisals in central Alabama area, Jefferson, Shelby, and surrounding counties. In addition to performing appraisals for first mortgage loans and refinancing, he prepares reports for other uses such as estate planning, private mortgage insurance removal, for sale by owner, marketing, and insurance valuations. Many clients include banks and mortgage companies for home purchases and refinances, as well as leading real estate agents in the Birmingham real estate market who trust him to provide them with a reliable appraisal to aid them in the accuracy pricing their listings. On a personal side, he's been married to his wife, Gina, for 28 years, and they have 2 awesome children, Bryant and Camille. In addition to keeping busy with his appraisal work, he enjoys spending time with family and friends, as well as keeping up with college football. Tom, take it away with your information that you're going to provide.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Let me see about getting my screen up here. All right. Okay. Does that look good? Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And as an appraiser, I like to share with others in the real estate field the process that we go through, appraisers go through in choosing comparables. I believe that if agents in particular know what the appraisers are looking for and do the same when they're pricing homes for sale, then the comps that they choose will be the same or similar, and the price involved or arrived at, will be similar. And hopefully that will decrease the likelihood that there will be significant gaps between contract price and appraisal values. So today, again, I'm going to be talking about how appraisers choose comps, and hopefully, that information can help, many others in the real estate fields, but especially agents. First of all, let's see here. Well, let's see. The slideshow's not quite working, but just a second. Pardon the delay here. Okay. All right. So first of all, we need to look to and ask ourselves, what is a comp? A comp is a sale, but a sale is not always a comp. So we have to define what a comp is. A comp is going to be located in a similar competitive market area as the property that we're looking at. They're going to be similar in physical characteristics. Hopefully they will have occurred recently, and they will compete with the subject property, meaning that a potential buyer would look at this one as well as the one that we're trying to price. One of the things I've ran into, though, is the fact that sometimes information that I see in the MLS is that we don't have correct square footage, and we have to start with correct square footage in order to price a property correctly. Because if you don't have it, of course, most pricing is based on the square footage of a home. If you don't have that right, the estimate's going to be wrong. It's important to know that all square footage of a home is not the same. And the main criteria that we look for, or that we use to sift through sales, is square footage. And the square footage that we use for that is what we call gross living area, which I'll get to in a minute. If we look at what happens if the square footage is wrong, we don't price the properties correctly. I mean, if you think a home is larger than what it actually is, you're probably going to be using sales of larger homes, and in which case you're going to overprice the home. And if you think it's smaller than what it actually is, you're probably going to be using comparables that are smaller than what they should be, and the price is going to be lower than what it should be. So square footage is really important. Again, like what I said, all square footage is not the same. Gross living area typically contributes the most to the value of a home, and it consists of the heated and cooled above grade living area. And when I say above grade living area, I'm talking about that area above the ground. It does not include the basement area. Porches, patios, and decks, they contribute to value as well, but they're not included in that gross living area square footage. And that's the same with basement square footage too. Basement square footage is given consideration in the whole scheme of the appraisal or pricing of a property, but and it does contribute to value, but it's not lumped in with the gross living area, which is, like I said, the number that we use to kind of help sift through sales and qualify sales when we're looking at square footage. I always recommend to get accurate square footage. I give three options. The best option to get accurate square footage when pricing a property is through an old appraisal. If a property has not changed physically in square footage, then the old appraisal is going to be the most accurate. And the appraisers use a measurement standard. It's called ANSI, and it gives us guidelines to follow when measuring a home and calculating gross living area. So if you look at an old appraisal, it's that appraiser will have used ANSI or a similar type of standard. So that square footage is going to be very similar to the square footage that the mortgage appraiser will use to come up with the square footage when the home goes under contract. So again, the old appraisal is usually the most accurate. There's also tax records. A lot of tax records are not accurate. However, there are situations where tax information can be accurate. In the Birmingham area, tax records are most accurate with like one-level homes without basements, without a second floor, that type of thing, a garden home style situation. So it's fairly accurate there. It may be different in different areas. So it's important to know which type of home that the tax records have a good square footage for. If you don't have an old appraisal and you don't trust the tax records, I always recommend getting the home measured. Appraisers offer this type of service, and they will go out and they will measure the home similar to what they would measure it for the appraisal, except they just do the sketch. So those are three sources of good square footage to start with to help in pricing a home correctly. Like I said, it's either an old appraisal, tax records, or getting the home measured. So in choosing comparables, there's certain criteria that we go by. We look at what we call bracketing. the physical characteristics of the property, and I'll get to that in a minute. But comparables should not be chosen by only looking at price. They should be arm's length transactions. The comps should be similar in location, construction quality, and hopefully they will have occurred recently, especially in today's market when we have such an increasing market and the market's changing so rapidly. In addition to closed sales, we can also look at pending sales. We also look at homes that are similar in size and also similar in features. That's going to help us give the most accurate pricing on a property. So I mentioned the term bracketing. A lot of people don't know what this means, but what it is you, at a minimum, appraisers use 3 sales. Now, agents can use a similar type of situation where they use, look at the at least 3 sales. But I always recommend looking at a property that's a little bit bigger than the property I'm trying to price, and then also a little bit smaller, and then trying to get one that's about the same size. And the idea behind this is that when appraisers make adjustments on their appraisals, they have to adjust for differences. So if you have a larger home that's in square footage, you have to make a downward adjustment for that larger square footage. So if you make the downward adjustment on the square footage on a larger home and then make an upward adjustment on the smaller home, and then of course the one that's very similar in size, you probably won't make many adjustments at all. Well, the range between the high and the low is going to be a lot lower, and that indicated range is going to help you price the property more accurately because the gap is not going to be larger. And it's better than using homes that are larger, using all larger homes or all smaller homes, because that's not going to give you as good of an indication of value. So using the bracketing method is usually helps provide the most reliable indication of value. Comparables should never be chosen based only on the price, because if you have an idea of the price in mind, maybe just off the top of your head you think it should sell for a certain amount, or maybe a seller has an idea of what they think it should sell for, you're probably going to find sales that support that, and that's not always the best thing, because just bracketing on price alone is not going to give you the most accurate indication of value, because within that price, there's other things built into that, such as more square footage, more features like pools or more acreage and that type of thing. So you really need to look at other factors rather than just price, or price per square foot. Price per square foot, I know a lot of agents use that as the holy grail of pricing a home, but if you only look at price per square foot and no other factors, then that can also give you an inaccurate indication of value. The only time that I would suggest using price per square foot is in a neighborhood where all the homes are very similar, such as the garden home style neighborhood that I talked about. If all the homes are very similar with a very tight square footage range, then the price per square foot is probably going to be pretty tight too. So in that situation, it might work. But if you are in another neighborhood where there's a wide range of square footage and types of homes, maybe you have some homes with basements and finished basements and that type of thing, the range in price per square foot is going to be so wide that it's not going to give you, by itself, it's not going to give you a good indication of value. And so that's something to consider as well. Good comps are arm's length transactions, and by arm's length transactions, I mean that they are not divorce sales, they're not foreclosures, and they're not short sales. The only time that these types of sales should be used is if they are reflective of the market. Right now, there's not a whole bunch of foreclosures going on, so you might have 1 out of 10 sales as a foreclosure, and in that case, they shouldn't even be considered. Whereas, back in 2008, 2009, after the real estate crash, you may have had 9 out of 10 homes that sold that were foreclosures, and they should be considered. So you really have to look at what's happening in the market to determine if a home, like a foreclosure like that should be sold. But again, in this market that we're in right now, I don't see that as an issue. Another thing that we look at is that the comp should be similar in location. There's an old rule that a lot of people believe in, that comps have to be within a mile of the property you're pricing or appraising, and that's just not the case as far as Fannie Mae is concerned. Fannie Mae actually says you can go as far as you want to find comparable sales, as long as you make adjustments for any differences that may exist in the location, and as long as you explain it. I think a lot of the understanding of the 1 mile rule may have come about because it's a lender guideline as opposed to a Fannie Mae guideline. So with that being said, I think the best comps are those that are in the subject's neighborhood or subdivision. So if you can find those are the best ones to use. Now, if you can't find those, it's okay to go outside of the immediate subdivision or the neighborhood and look in another neighborhood that may have similar type homes and be within what we call a competitive market area, which is an area that competes with the property that we're pricing. And school systems have a lot to do with that as well. School systems in the Birmingham market drive property values, and I'm sure that's similar to other areas as well. So that should be factored in too. I mean, I would rather go a little bit further away to get a comp that's in a similar school system as opposed to one that may be 1 block away, but it's in a superior school system. So that's something to consider as well. Comps should be of similar construction quality. Homes that are in a similar quality of construction usually are priced very similar to each other, and the value is relatively equal. So what you might want to ask yourself is if a buyer would consider purchasing the home that you're looking at, but that maybe have a better construction quality. Better construction quality puts homes in different price ranges, so that may put somebody out of their price range. So again, the construction quality is very important. Comps should have occurred recently, and oh boy, that is so important in today's appreciating market. On a general rule of thumb, I like to try to keep sales within 90 days. However, in today's market, with things increasing so much, I try to stay with 30 days or less if possible. That's not always possible. That's what I shoot for. In a more stable market, like we had, a year or two ago, before the pandemic and before interest rates dropped so low and demand was increased, older sales might be relevant if the market was stable. Right now, that's really not the case, but you can use older sales to look at as context in what's happening with the market right now, because you can look at homes that sold 6 months ago and also look at similar homes that have sold within the past week or so, and see how much the market has increased. So that can kind of give you a little bit of context to go on. In addition to closed sales, appraising is generally a historical look at property values. To get around that, appraisers are able to use pending sales. And I also recommend that agents or anybody else looking to price a home look at pending sales as well. Now, when I say pending sales, it has to be the right type of pending sale. They have to really have passed all the tests, which mean that all the financing is taken care of. The appraisal is done, and they're just waiting to close. So that is a very good pending sale to look at, as opposed to maybe a home that went under contract, yesterday or last week that may not have had all the, may not have had an appraisal, it may not appraise, that type of thing. But as far as, good comparables, a good pending sale that's had the finance and the appraisal is probably about the best you can get next to the closed sale that occurred real recently, because it's going to give you a great picture of what's going on right now compared to, historically within the past 30 to 60 days or whatever. Comps should always be similar in size or, within the range that I tell you with the bracketing and so forth. And I always recommend it to start with that homes that are maybe 10 to 15% larger or smaller to bracket the square footage of the home. Then when you're only working with 10 or 15% of the larger size and so forth, that's going to increase the probability that you're going to come up with a better price, because the more adjustments you make on a comparable, the less reliable it's going to be. If it's not possible to look at sales that are within that 10 to 15% range, you can go a little bit higher, and I would recommend maybe going to 20 to 25%, but I wouldn't go any higher than that, because again, once you get into properties where you have to make or account for differences in value due to square footage or features or things like that, they become less and less reliable. So it's important to work with something that's pretty similar in size. Again, comparables should have similar features. For example, if you're working on pricing a home that has a pool, then you should use comparables that have pools or barns or acreage or that type of thing. Or on the flip side, if you're pricing a home that does not have a pool, I wouldn't use a home with a pool. I would maybe look at alternatives, maybe in another neighborhood to a home that's similar in square footage and all other features to get around using that one with a pool or the other larger feature like a barn or acreage and that type of thing. And again, I would stick with a similar school system. So because that is so important, I include that in the similar features as well. So after you've collected all the sales that you believe to be comparable to your property, what you have to do is you have to look to see what's the high and the lows in that range, because typically your home's going to fall within that range. You also look at what the number of listings tell you. If you look at the number of listings that we have now that was covered previously in the previous presentation, the inventory is down so low that there's an undersupply of homes, which is driving prices up, and because there's such high demand, you can afford, if the supply is down, you can afford to be a little bit more aggressive in your pricing of the property because the demand is there and the people will probably pay for that because of the low inventory. You also have to look at how your property fits into the range of the comps in terms of size, quality, and features. So if the home you're trying to price is of a smaller square footage, or the quality just isn't as up there with the rest of the homes of the comparables that you look at, or the features, if it just doesn't have as many features, then reconciling at the lower end of that range is probably smarter, because that's how they're going to compete with the other properties that are available. Now, if your home is a larger home or better quality and has better features, then it's reconciling at that upper end. It would probably be wise there. Then, of course, like I said, you just see how your property fits in using those criteria, and that's going to help you find out maybe where that property should be priced at based on the closed sales, pendings, and the active listings. The active listings are very important because that's what the current competition for the property is going to be. Some of the common issues that I have found in speaking with agents is that they use kind of too restrictive distance guidelines, trying to stay within that 1 mile guideline. They also try to stay within the immediate subdivision or the neighborhood, which is good if there are sales there. But if there are not, then it's okay to move outside of that into a competitive market area, that I mentioned before. I also mentioned using older sales, but that would only be wise in a stable market, which we're really not in right now. We're really in an appreciating market. So the older sales probably wouldn't give you as accurate of an indication value. Again, looking at current listings and pending sales is going to help you zero in on that. And using the bracketing guidelines within reason will help you come up with a value that's going to be reflective of the market as well. I always recommend also to look at expired or withdrawn listings, which we don't have a lot of these days because the inventory is so low, most homes sell. But in more stable markets, when that's not the case, it's good to look at expired and withdrawn listings too, because typically those were taken off the market because they were priced too high. So if you look at what they were priced at, then that can kind of give you an idea of what the upper limit of pricing might be for your home. That really does it as far as how appraisers choose comparables. I just wanted to also give a couple of thoughts from my perspective as an appraiser on how buyers can possibly win a bid in a hot real estate market. Again, from the appraiser's perspective, it's very important, with the information that's available online and that type of thing, that buyers be knowledgeable about what the upper and lower limits of the price ranges are. For example, if you knew the upper limit of the price of the home that you wanted to buy was like maybe $150, it would help you to make a decision, not to make an offer in the $175,000 or $200,000 range. And that is happening. There are so many stories from agents I hear about homes being bid up so far above list price and multiple times, 20 or 30 buyers doing that too. But it's important to know those limits, because if you bid too high, then the seller may not want to take the chance that it might not appraise. So you really have to be aware of that. But then they also have to be aware that if it is above the list price, they need to know about making up the difference. And they might also write in the contract and have appraisal gap coverage to let the seller know that they will make up the difference if it does not appraise, if appraises lower than the actual contract amount. It's very important also for buyers to know and have accurate information, as opposed to going on hearsay about what homes have sold for, as opposed to what people say they do. I would always verify that type of information. The last two things I wanted to point out was, of course, agents know about all this, but it's always important for the buyer to have their financing lined up, because that's going to give them a heads up above the other people that are bidding on the property, because everybody else is going to have their financing lined up as well. And then the last thing is an agent CMA. A listing agent typically does a CMA to price the home, but a buyer's agent can also do a CMA, and which might cover sales or pending sales that have occurred since the home went on the market, and that can help the buyer zero in on a winning offer. So that's basically all I have. We're going to have questions later on, so I'll skip that. But I just want to point out also that I do write an appraisal blog to help answer questions that agents and mortgage people and buyers and sellers might have. It's birminghamappraisalblog.com. What I've strived to do with that is just answer questions that I get, that people ask me, because I figure if they have a question, that others will probably be asking the same thing. So if you have an appraisal question, you can check out my blog. If it's not answered there, please let me know, because I'd be more than glad to cover that. So I'm always looking for information to cover and questions to answer to help other people out. But if you have any kind of questions related to the appraisal field, and I can help you, it doesn't even have to do with an appraisal that I've done. I have agents call me and ask me, why did the appraiser do this in this appraisal, or something like that? And I'll try my best to answer those types of questions. I'm always trying to help answer the question about why appraisers do what they do and how they do what they do. So I'll try to provide as good of an explanation as I can. So you can reach me at my phone or my email address. And again, I thank you for the time that I've been offered today.
Thank you so much, Tom, for that information about appraisals. That was some very nice information. Our next speaker will be Albert Martinez with Essent Guaranty. He's the account manager for the HFA East. Albert has been involved in the mortgage lending industry since 1997. Prior to joining Essent, he was with a major nationwide lender where his primary focus was helping low and moderate income communities and serving emerging markets. He worked with realtors, builders, sales partners, housing counselors, and housing finance agencies to fulfill his previous roles' goal of providing low and moderate income homebuyers with mortgage products designed to help them achieve home ownership responsibly. Albert currently serves on the leadership committee of the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals in South Florida and is a board member of the Housing Counseling Agency and nonprofit Real Estate Education and Community Housing. Albert joined Essent Guaranty, Inc. in 2017 as the account manager for Southeast Florida and is now also part of the HFA support team and serves the Eastern U.S. Albert will be joined with Siobhan McCreevy, who is a sales support manager at Essent Guaranty and part of Essent's HFA support team. Thank you so much, Albert and Siobhan, for joining us today, and you may start your presentation.
Thank you, Tony. Big thanks to Carrie, Kathy, Alabama HFA for having us on this morning. As Tony mentioned, I'm Albert Martinez. With me this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, if you're in Alabama, I have Siobhan McCreevy. Siobhan, hello, how are you?
Hey guys, how you doing?
All right. So Siobhan and I were part of the Essent HFA team. And what we'd like to do this morning, our goal is to help you understand how to think outside of the box as it relates to mortgage insurance, right? Because forever and a day, we've been using the monthly mortgage insurance option for over 90% of transactions across the US. Well, we want to try and help you think outside of the box. And before we move on, I just want to give you some context in case you're unaware, is Alabama HFA, Freddie Mac's HFA Advantage. You're going to hear from Jim Hall in just a minute. He's up next. Essent MI, we all work together to help your buyers, your borrowers get into low down payment mortgages while using the down payment assistance that's available to them through Alabama HFA to get into homes they can afford. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and talk about how we can use MI creatively to get your buyers, your borrowers into homes they can afford. So first off, we're going to talk about a quick overview here. The monthly product, this is the first and the last time you're going to hear me mention, is it's the most common product. It's the most popular MI product by far. It's been around forever and a day. Everyone pretty much on this call knows about it, how it works. What we're going to focus on today is single premiums as well as split premiums. And these are sort of outside of the box because they're not as common as the monthly option as you can imagine. Now, to help us unpack this, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Siobhan, where she's going to talk about single premiums first.
Thanks, Albert. So a borrower paid single might be a good choice for a home buyer who wants to keep their monthly payment low, as it often provides the lowest monthly payment of any MI option available. With a BP single, that full premium is paid in its entirety at closing, and it can be paid a few different ways. The full premium can be paid by the home buyer, but this is obviously going to result in higher closing costs for the home buyer. It can be financed either in whole or in part. Generally, with finance single premium, principal and interest payments will be lower than if the MI premium is paid monthly, but you need to ensure that you're in compliance with GSE guidelines for LTV because a finance premium will increase the loan amount. The seller or builder can pay the full premium upfront, but when you go with this option, you have to ensure that you're in compliance with interested party contribution guidelines. And then finally, and this is a nice option, especially when you're structuring HFA loans, the upfront premium can be paid using part of the down payment assistance funds. So, in short, a BP single could be a great option for a home buyer. But, if paying the MI premium in its entirety at closing isn't feasible or isn't a good option for a borrower, a split premium might be a good alternative. So the split MI premium option is a really neat product because it really offers the ultimate flexibility when you're structuring a loan with MI, because the MI premium cost is divided into two parts: a single upfront premium payment ranging from 50 basis points to 175 basis points, and a monthly MI premium that's generally going to be lower for the home buyer. Just like with a BP single, that upfront portion can be paid several ways. It can be paid by the home buyer, can be financed into the home buyer's mortgage by the lender or the seller. Or I'm sorry, it can be financed into the home buyer's mortgage, or it can be paid by a third party, the lender or the builder or the seller. Or, and again, this is really key, it can be paid using your DPA funds. And then there are a few key benefits that come along when you're using a split. The range of upfront premium amounts and the variety of payment options for that upfront portion really offers some flexibility when you're trying to find an MI product that works best for a specific home buyer scenario. And then because you have that upfront component, the monthly MI premium is lower, which is going to help you qualify more borrowers. And then finally, it competes with FHA, and we'll walk through a specific scenario of how a split and an FHA loan compare in a few slides.
Okay, so just like any interview, any transaction as salespeople, we want to make sure that we're asking a lot of questions to help identify the needs, right, of your borrower, of your buyer. So what are some of the questions that we want to ask in relation to mortgage insurance? So what is it that they're looking for, right? Is it the smallest down payment? Is it the least amount of funds for closing? What about the lowest monthly payment? That seems to be popular too, right? And then, of course, some follow-up questions. How long do they plan to be in the house? And as Siobhan just mentioned, the single premium, the split premiums, they pretty much often help reduce the debt to income ratio. As we've been talking about, the panel has for the last hour or so that we've been on, affordability is an issue. Purchase prices, median prices, they keep continuing to increase, right? And so those options, single and splits, can help with debt to income ratio if you're just slightly over the maximum DTI. So, Siobhan.
And then there's one really key additional benefit of borrower paid MI, and that's that unlike FHA mortgage insurance, BPMI can be canceled. And that's a really good thing because it can lower a homebuyer's monthly mortgage payment, which can really add up to significant savings in the long run. So the Homeowners Protection Act, the HPA, covers residential mortgages with BPMI. So mortgages to finance the purchase, initial construction, or refinancing of a single family dwelling that's the primary residence of your home buyer. And then BPMI can be canceled, first off, at the request of the servicer at any time. This is pretty key because MI providers do not determine if and when MI can be canceled. BPMI can be canceled at the request of the borrower when the LTV based on the original value reaches 80%. And then finally, your BPMI is going to automatically cancel when your LTV based on the original value reaches 78%. So just another really nice feature about borrower paid mortgage insurance.
Yeah. So Siobhan just gave you a high level overview of the way that singles and splits work. Let's go ahead and do a deep dive now. On a scenario. Go ahead and let's take us to the next slide here so we can show everybody. This is a borrower paid single premium that is being compared to an FHA scenario. And here are some of the assumptions. We have a purchase price of $250,000, which is very relevant in your market. 97% loan to value, 720 FICO score. And again, the MI premium here being paid by the borrower, the lender, or the seller. Over on the left, you're going to see the loan and MI details. Towards the middle of the screen, you're going to see the Essent borrower paid single premium scenario. And then over to the right, you'll have FHA. Now, first, you're going to see the upfront premium rate of Essent for the single premium is 2.75% compared to FHA's 1.75. And now you're saying to yourself, well, Albert, 2.75 is higher than 1.75. What's going on here? Well, let's move on to the next line where you have the ongoing premium rate. As you can see, NA, not available. It doesn't exist. There is no monthly mortgage insurance payment when you pay a single premium upfront versus FHA's 85 basis points. And I don't want to steal my own thunder here, but 85 basis points for this scenario is $171 a month for the life of the loan. If we move on, you're going to see the total loan amount, pretty similar, 242 to 245. You do see an increase though in down payment and upfront MI at $14,000 compared to almost $9,000. However, you're going to see that at the end of the day, the monthly savings over FHA is $132 a month. And this is really significant, right? Because you can either, as a borrower, pocket these $132, or as we've been talking about again, the market that we're in, we now have $132 in purchasing power that we did not have before. Okay. Thank you, Siobhan.
Okay, so I said earlier, the nice thing about splits, it really competes with an FHA loan. So here we have 3 split premium options as compared to FHA. Again, we're assuming a $250,000 sales price where the borrower puts down 3% and the upfront portion of the split is going to be paid either by the borrower or another party. So in scenario 1, the borrower or the lender or seller has an upfront of 125 basis points and their ongoing monthly MI premium is 66 basis points. The 3% down payment plus that upfront amount is going to be $10,531 that either the borrower or another party has to put down at closing, or it can be paid with the DPA funds. The monthly P&I is a little over $1,200, and the monthly MI payment is $134, which brings your monthly payment in at $1,344. And this is really within striking distance of what the borrower would pay with an FHA loan. But the key thing here is you have to remember that unlike FHA, borrowers can request to cancel SNMI once their LTV reaches 80%. So if you assume a 2% annual home appreciation, your MI could be canceled in 61 months, which would result in a savings of more than $132 a month over FHA. And then in scenario 2, the borrower or another party is going to put down a little more upfront. So in this scenario, the borrower has an upfront premium rate of 150 basis points, which makes their ongoing monthly premium 62 basis points. Again, your upfront plus your down payment that needs to be paid at closing is a little over $11,000. The monthly P&I is still $1,200, but your MI payment is now $125 a month because that borrower has that higher upfront premium rate. And this is going to bring your monthly payment in at $1,336 a month, so a $7 monthly savings over the FHA option. And then finally, in our last Essent split scenario, the borrower has an upfront premium rate of 175 basis points, which you can see is equivalent to the FHA upfront premium, and their monthly premium rate is 58 basis points. So that upfront plus the down payment that needs to be paid at closing, or again, hopefully with the help of DPA funds, is going to be $11,744. Again, your monthly P&I is $1,211, but the ongoing monthly MI payment is going to be $117. So in this last scenario, that borrower's monthly payment is a $15 monthly savings over the FHA mortgage insurance option. And what both of these scenarios kind of go to illustrate is that essentially there are several ways to structure a loan with SNMI that leaves the home buyer in a better financial situation than they would be with an FHA loan.
Thank you, Siobhan. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the resources that are available to you. Some of them are going to be specific to the loan officers on Zoom right now, but we do have something coming up for realtors that we feel you're going to find very interesting. So let's talk about Rate Finder. As a loan officer, sometimes you're on the go and maybe you don't have your loan input into your loan origination system just yet. And you want to have an idea of what the monthly or the single or the split premium mortgage insurance is going to be for your pre-approval, right? So what you can do is you can visit our website, essent.us, and we're going to have our website listed on the last slide, and you can access Rate Finder there. So Rate Finder is going to help you with a quick quote, or it can also help you if you want to compare multiple products side by side. As a matter of fact, over here on the right, you're going to see that we have 3 different options available. We have the more traditional deferred monthly example. We have an FHA scenario. And then last but not least, we have the single premium all lined up here side by side. It gets even better because let's say that you want to include split premiums, which are not here listed right now. You can do that because we can compare up to 5 different scenarios at one time. Now, what you can do with this is you can save it, you can print it, you can email it to your borrower and have them take a look for themselves and make an informed decision on what they would like their future to look like with mortgage insurance. Okay? Thank you, Siobhan. All right, so we've talked about the different structures for mortgage insurance. We talked about the singles. We talked about splits, a tiny little bit about monthly. We talked about Rate Finder, that tool where we can, that I just spoke about. We can compare multiple products at the same time. Now we're going to shift gears on you a little bit, and we're going to talk to you about an award-winning tool that Essent has available to agents, to loan officers, to borrowers. And let me start off with a question. How many of you have been sitting across the table from a borrower, from a buyer, and their thoughts about their next transaction are maybe like, you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and wait. I don't want to pay for that PMI, whatever that is. I'm going to wait till I have 20% for my down payment, and then I'm going to go ahead and purchase my first home. Or what about those that say, you know what, rates are up. They're on the way back up, but guess what? Maybe about another month or so, they're going to be on the way back down, so I'm just going to wait. Well, what SNIQ does for those types of situations is it illustrates to the potential home buyer what it is that they leave on the table when they don't buy today. In dollars and cents, what it is that they leave on the table when they don't buy today. So just to follow along here, you can create customer specific solutions. It takes seconds, literally just a few minutes, how to, show the opportunity cost of waiting to save up for that 20% down payment. It projects how quickly homeownership can build equity, wealth accumulation with as little as 3% down. It calculates a long-term savings of paying a mortgage versus paying that rent payment at the end of the month. And then, of course, it determines the monthly mortgage payment, including the Essent MI. It's available on our website, essent.us/SNIQ, completely free to use, no credentials necessary. And you can share this with agents. If you're LOs, you can share this with loan officers, with agents, with borrowers as well. Borrowers can actually access this and play with the numbers themselves. It's available in English and in Spanish for those who prefer to speak or read in Spanish. And it's built for desktop, but it's available for your tablets as well as your smartphones. You can take the feedback certificate that is generated. And this is probably not going to come out very clearly, but this is a sample here of what it looks like. And it's not doing it for me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe it for you. So this PDF certificate, there it is. This PDF certificate that you're looking at right now is completely co-brandable. As you can see, we have Rihanna Realtor on the left. We have Leonardo DiCaprio, Leo Lender on the right. And what this is going to do is, again, it's going to illustrate the opportunity cost of not buying today. So with this particular scenario, I'm going to just quickly read. It says, based on your monthly savings pattern and return rate, it take you 15 years and 6 months to accumulate 20% for a down payment. At that time, you'll pay $223,000 in rent versus buying now and earning $205,000 in equity and property appreciation in your home. You can request cancellation of MI when the loan-to-value ratio drops to 80%. So 12 data points. That's it. For example, how much do you have for a down payment? What are your monthly savings? What will your mortgage look like when you eventually close? With those 12 data points that are involved in the questions that I just asked, this feedback certificate is generated. Now, some of the best practices out there that we've heard from agents is they will go ahead and print 25 of these as an example and leave them on the kitchen table for their next open house. So now their walk-ins have something to take with them, with property information, with the agent's contact info, with their partner lender on here as well, in case they have any follow-up questions. It's free. All it costs is the paper and the ink that it's written on or typed on. And the other question or the other best practice that we hear a lot about is loan officers will just print a bunch of these, keep them on their desk. And if they ever have the objection of, you know what, I'd rather wait to save up for 20%, or I'm thinking that rates are going to go back down, here's an illustration, sir. Here's an example of what the cost is to wait when you end up doing so. So that's SNIQ. Again, it's available on our site. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Siobhan so she can close us out now.
Yep. I just want to thank you guys so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions or want to discuss your options when you're structuring your next deal with MI, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Will Landis, our fantastic account manager covering Alabama and Mississippi, or Candace Racine, our equally amazing regional vice president who covers the entire Southeast. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Siobhan.
Thank you, Siobhan and Albert, for that information about private mortgage insurance. That was some valuable information I hope everybody was listening to. Our next speaker will be James Hall with Freddie Mac. Jim is the Affordable Lending Manager. He joined Freddie Mac in April of 2018 as their single-family affordable lending manager to promote the Freddie Mac Hfa Advantage mortgage program to HFA lenders and realtors. Prior to this position, Jim worked at the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency for 12 years as the assistant director in the single family division. In that position, Jim was responsible for business development while being an advocate for affordable lending for workforce families and the underserved. Prior to joining NJHMFA, Jim worked in the private mortgage industry for 20 years in various business development and operations positions. Jim has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Rutgers University, Camden. Okay, Jim, take it away.
All right, Tony, it's great to hear your voice again, my friend. Carrie, thank you for inviting me to speak today. Our partnership with Alabama Housing is very valuable to us, and thank you, audience, for taking the time out of your busy day to tune in. We've had a great slate of speakers today, and I really enjoyed hearing all the information that has been shared. So again, thank you, Alabama Housing, for organizing this event. There I am, as Tony had mentioned, I'm an affordable lending manager with Freddie Mac. I work specifically with housing finance agencies on the East Coast, and I help with business development strategies and working with the housing finance agencies, lenders, and realtors in promoting our programs. So first, for our audience who isn't quite sure on who Freddie Mac is, I think it's a great starting point to know that Freddie Mac was created and chartered by Congress in 1970. We experienced our 50th anniversary last year. We're very proud of that. And as a government-sponsored enterprise, we operate in the secondary mortgage market. We're a mission-based organization. Our mission is to promote liquidity, stability, and affordability in the marketplace. And we also have various community missions also. We have three main business lines: single family, which I'm part of, multifamily, which is 5 and more units, and capital markets. Our business is built on 4 main pillars. First is insights. We have a very strong data and analytics team, which provides us a lot of information, similar to what Stuart was presenting early on in our forum today. We also offer mortgage products. The mortgage product that is specific, for lenders to use through Alabama Housing is HFA Advantage, and I'll get into some of the finer points of that program later. We also provide business solutions, resources and tools for real estate professionals to use to help with your selling strategies, and also education. And we really take this serious. Events and training is very, very dear to me. Prior to the pandemic, I did visit and do events in Alabama in conjunction with Tony and Kathy James. So I was able to meet, hopefully some of you in the audience in person. We had a pivot to a virtual world last year, and it worked out quite well. And we're continuing to do it. Recently in the last 2 weeks, Kathy James and I, did partner on an event with the Birmingham Association of Realtors, and that was quite successful. And we look to do more in the future with Alabama Housing. I've always loved this slide. This is the affordable ecosystem. And, we put a bubble chart together here just to really visualize, for the prospective home buyer and potential borrower, really how many hands are involved in the transaction. And, at the top, you see real estate professionals and loan officers. The genesis of the transaction starts with the realtor, and then gets handed off to the loan officer. Organizations like Freddie Mac and housing finance agencies, we're providing liquidity into the marketplace, and, through the secondary market by purchasing loans, from lenders and then putting them into mortgage-backed securities. So again, like I said, I thought this is a very neat slide for people to see. It can be quite overwhelming, for a first-time home buyer coming into the market for the first time. All of us, here on this call and represented, on this chart here, we're fiduciaries, and the prospective home buyer and potential borrower comes to us and puts their trust in our hands that we are going to, provide to them, a home that meets their needs and is most affordable. And also, as loan officers, the trust is put into their hands that they're going to provide the most affordable program for the borrower to have and make their monthly payments and educate them on on budgeting and how to sustain home ownership. Housing finance agencies are, again, a big part of my life. As Tony mentioned in my introduction, I worked at a housing finance agency for 12 years. I really became an advocate for the underserved. Every day, it was my mission to help lower to moderate income folks, attain the American dream of home ownership. So housing finance agencies are a perfect partner for Freddie Mac because they are mission-based organizations that are, focused on, affordable housing in their states and communities. So Freddie launched a program called HFA Advantage. And now HFA Advantage can only be used by lenders, specifically through a housing finance agency. They cannot deliver the HFA Advantage program directly to Freddie Mac like our other programs, Home Possible and Home One. So this program is a 3% down program. So right off the bat, you can see that it's more affordable in that regard compared to an FHA loan, because FHA requires 3.5% down. We allow for 105% total loan to value. That allows a housing finance agency to put a down payment assistance loan behind us if their down payment assistance is a second mortgage. Income limits are set by the housing finance agency. So, we do provide income limits, and I'll go over the tool that we have a little bit later. Now, if the housing finance agency has limits that are lower than what we provide, we will defer to that. And also the housing finance agency determines the home buyer education requirements. And, the really big win for the consumer on this is that we have charter level mortgage insurance, and I'll illustrate that for you in a few more slides. So the impact and role that HFAs have really, had on the affordable ecosystem is, and they've been around for 50 years. They started being born in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And again, like I mentioned, they're here to serve lower to moderate income folks. And, over the past half century, they provided $450 billion in financing for the purchase, development, and rehabilitation of more than 7 million affordable homes and rental apartments. And that's something to really, really be proud of. So the HFA Advantage program, specifically it's for one unit primary residences. It can be used for purchase or no cash out refinancing. That is up to the housing finance agency to determine. I went over the LTV ratios. Again, it's 3% down, 97% LTV. These loans have to be underwritten through our automated underwriting system, which is Loan Product Advisor. Some people call it by the acronym LPA or LP. There's no reserves required, but I always recommend that the borrower does have cash and it's on the 1003, put it in there because it just strengthens the deal as far as, when it's put through LPA. And as I mentioned, income limits are established by the housing finance agency, and there's flexible mortgage insurance. So it provides a really good alternative to FHA lending. And I know Albert in his presentation and Siobhan were going over the comparison with FHA loans, and I don't want people to think that we're here just to bash FHA. I mean, they are part of the affordable ecosystem, but our loans at 80% AMI and lower are more affordable for the consumer. So we want lenders to look at that option to save the borrower much money over the life of the loan. And this is a great chart here. So as far as on the HFA Advantage mortgage, I mentioned charter level mortgage insurance. So if you look at this box here, the lower right-hand corner, on a standard conventional loan, the mortgage insurance at 3% down, and bottom right-hand corner is 35%. If you go to the left, on the HFA Advantage, it's 18% when there's 3% down. So the savings is almost half for their monthly MI payment. And I know Albert and Siobhan did a side by side, and this is similar. But again, it's just to illustrate to you, the amount of money that can be saved. Over the life of the loan, there's just certain factors that a conventional loan has over the FHA loan, and one of the main things is the FHA loan requires upfront mortgage insurance, and that's not a requirement on a conventional loan, and that can be quite costly on the FHA side. And on the conventional side, our mortgage insurance sunsets at 80% LTV. It's not perpetual; it goes away. On FHA loan, stays on for the life of the loan. So if you look down towards the bottom here, we broke it out as the MI cost over 5 years. And scenario one is just on a borrower paid monthly plan, and they would pay $5,300, compared to the FHA loan, which was over $11,000. So the savings, over 5 years can be $6,000, which is very substantial for a first-time home buyer. They can do a lot with that $6,000. So again, HFA Advantage versus FHA, like I mentioned, the mortgage insurance can sunset on the HFA Advantage, and it stays on perpetually for the life of the loan on an FHA loan. On the HFA Advantage, we just have the monthly premium, whereas on the FHA, they have the costly upfront premium and monthly. And then we have the reduced MI at 18%. Now, I wanted to also illustrate to you, as I mentioned, housing finance agencies really focus on lower to moderate income folks. And we got this information from our advocate in Washington, D.C., the National Council of State Housing Associations. And it illustrates the median income for borrowers. This is through 2019. So an HFA borrower, and these are national, Alabama figures, might be lower or higher, and you would know better than I. But nationally, it's 50,770 was the average HFA home buyer, compared to almost double for all home buyers, 93,200. So this really, really amplifies, this segment of, the marketplace that HFAs are helping. And as I mentioned earlier about income limits, we have a great tool called the Home Possible Income and Property Eligibility Tool. And this tool is to verify if a borrower can qualify for Freddie Mac HFA Advantage based on their property location and their qualifying income. Now, Alabama Housing is going to give you a copy of my presentation. So you'll get a copy of this link here. And possibly maybe Tony can put it in the chat room if you need it right away. So this is the tool that lenders use and real estate professionals on a daily basis, and very functional. And this slide here illustrates to you, once you put the information in, it allows you to check for available down payment assistance, and also gives you particular income limits in that area for the address that you entered. It breaks it down, what the Home Possible income limit is, and that is also used for HFA Advantage. What 100% median income is, the 80% area median income, and the 50% area median income. Great tool for you to utilize. And as I mentioned earlier, we're a mission-based organization, and we have community missions. And right now, one of our major community missions is quality in lending. We're trying to bridge the gap of white homeownership versus African American homeownership. And housing finance agencies, throughout the decades have often, led in serving borrowers of color. And this is a great chart, again, provided to us by the National Council of State Housing Agencies that illustrate on the red line the percentage of loans made by housing finance agencies to borrowers of color versus the market, which is the blue line. So as you can see, there are many, many years where housing finance agencies are either equal to or greater than loans that are being made for borrowers of color. And again, one of our pillars that I mentioned early on is to really provide resources and tools to our real estate professionals and lenders who partner with us. So this website here is more focused for lenders, and I really encourage our lenders in the audience, to sign up for the subscription center. It will give you, trends, relevant data, updates, news, and really keep you in the know. And Freddie Mac promises not to spam you or stalk you with emails. And the feedback that I've gotten from lenders that I partner with is that this is a valuable tool for them. And we also have something similar for realtors in the audience, and that's our Real Estate Professional Resource Center. And I encourage realtors and real estate professionals to sign up for this. This is more focused for the realtor world, again, providing you trends and key topics that will drive business and help you, set your selling strategies. And as I mentioned, one of our other pillars is, education. And Credit Smart, has been around for 20 years. And this is our financial literacy tool, which is really, a great course for the potential first-time home buyer or any home buyer to use, because it's a free online program that, really focuses on multiple topics: credit management, money management, home ownership, foreclosure avoidance, and we really encourage the use of this. And also, it's available in multiple languages. And for realtors and loan officers who want to be community leaders, we offer the opportunity for you to become a Credit Smart trainer. So you get certified to actually perform these classes. You can do them in your office. You can do them at your local church, fire hall, community center, and educate the people in your community on financial literacy, because I can tell you, this isn't really being taught in high school anymore. I went to high school and graduated in 1979, and we had a business math course, which really got us ready to, graduate and go out there and be able to balance a checkbook and budget and things like that and pay bills. And, I've seen with my children that, that hasn't been taught at the high school level anymore. And I don't even really think it's, being exposed at the college level. So this would, give you a great opportunity to get out there in your community. And if you're interested in this, my email address is james_hall@freddiemac.com. And I can introduce you to the managers of this program to get you into the training certification process. Again, it's a great tool, and the people that you teach in this, they'll remember you, and I almost guarantee that you'll get word of mouth referrals from it. And part of this suite is the Credit Smart Homebuyer U. And again, this is separate from Credit Smart, which Credit Smart is financial literacy. Credit Smart Homebuyer U just focuses on homebuyer education. So this is 6 modules. Again, it's self-paced, it's interactive. We just got notified, it says offered in English only there. It is offered in Spanish now, so we're very happy with that. And again, I encourage you to, have your prospective home buyer and borrowers go through this. They'll get a certification at the end, and it's a nationally recognized course. So with that, I want to thank you and Alabama Housing for inviting me to speak with you today. Again, we have a lot of challenges in the affordable marketplace right now. A lot of our speakers went over the challenges with the inventory and rising values actually work the inverse on our lower to moderate income folks, because it makes it more expensive for them to attain a home. So again, we're all in this together. Like I said, we're fiduciaries. We're the borrowers and the prospective home buyers are putting their trust in us to make sure we meet their needs and provide the most affordable programs and housing possible for them. So Tony, thank you, and I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Jim, for that valuable information about Freddie Mac's programs. Our next speaker will be Carrie Hammacker. Carrie Hammacker is the single family administrator for us here at Alabama Housing, and she joined us in 2018. She has more than 15 years of mortgage lending management experience. Carrie is knowledgeable in all areas of the mortgage industry, including sales, production, operations, and underwriting. A qualified and certified HUD direct endorsement underwriter, she also holds the staff appraisal review designation and has been an active member of the Mortgage Bankers Association of Alabama.
Thank you, Tony. I want to say, first of all, thank you to all of the presenters that participated in the Homeownership Forum today. It's been great, valuable information specifically about Alabama, which is always a great thing to have available to us. So I'm going to go through a little bit of information about our programs here at Alabama Housing, and then we'll have a Q&A session and do a fun little giveaway. So about AHFA. AHFA's mission is to provide homeowner and rental opportunities for Alabamians. The Alabama Housing Finance Authority is a public corporation and instrumentality of the state of Alabama, created on July 25th, 1980 by the Alabama State Legislature. Through its single-family financing programs, AHFA offers affordable interest rates and down payment assistance, as well as a mortgage credit certificate program. Last year, so our fiscal year of 20, and our fiscal year is from October to October, we served 946 families, and 92.6% of those were first-time home buyers. So by far and away, a large percentage of our families that we work with are first-time home buyers. We impacted 49 of the 67 counties in the state. It is a personal goal of mine to see all of those counties be served and us be effectively making sure that our program is available to all folks in the state of Alabama. And the only way we can do that is obviously through our partnership with realtors and lenders throughout the state who are out there working directly with those families and making them aware of our programs. The average purchase price of a new home that was purchased using our program was $201,000, and the average purchase price of an existing home was $153,305. The average income of our homeowners was $53,724 annually. That's us in a nutshell last year. Some highlights of our programs are we have a first mortgage loan program. And this program, so just a little bit about Alabama Housing, we offer a product and we provide liquidity to the lenders out there that are working with home buyers by having this program that they can sell directly to us. And we don't originate any loans. So we aren't working directly with the home buyer. The lender is doing that, and they're doing that through partnerships with their realtor referral network. And they're offering our programs to the different buyers out there. A lender has to be a participating lender to be eligible to sell us a loan. So it's important that any prospective realtor or home buyer do their research and make sure that the lender that they're working with is able to offer a program. So we have first mortgage loans, which are FHA, and it's a standard FHA loan. So all of the standard FHA credit underwriting guidelines are followed. And we also offer a conventional program, which Jim talked about earlier, which is the Freddie Mac Hfa Advantage mortgage. And your underwriter would follow all of the standard Freddie Mac underwriting guidelines. Now, the difference with the Freddie Mac program is there's basically two subsections of that program. There's the program that is available to borrowers who have an income that is 80% or below of the area median income. And you would use that Freddie Mac income lookup tool that Jim showed earlier to find out if your borrower's income qualified them for the 80% and below. That program actually, number one, has a lower interest rate. Number two, the borrower can have down to a minimum credit score of 640. And they qualify for charter level mortgage insurance, which is the 18% coverage versus 35% coverage. So it's a lower mortgage insurance. They also qualify in a partnership with Freddie Mac. Alabama Housing offers an AIS grant along with that program. So in addition to our down payment assistance, the home buyer, if they're at 80% to 50% of area median income, they receive a 50 basis point of the loan amount grant. And if they're at 50% or below, they receive a 100 basis point grant. Since this program's inception, we have given out at Alabama Housing $165,000 in this AIS grant funding. So that is a grant. The home buyer does not have to pay that back. And it's been a useful resource to home buyers, especially now that you think about how prices are going up. Sellers are less willing to pay or don't have to pay closing costs now. So this is a good program for home buyers to utilize. We also have the Freddie Mac over 80% AMI. So in that program, the interest rate is a little bit higher, and the borrower must have at least a 680 FICO. But it is eligible to be put together with our down payment assistance. Next slide. So let's talk about our down payment assistance. Housing is affordable when the housing of an acceptable minimum standard can be obtained and retained, leaving sufficient income to meet essential non-housing expenditure. As mortgage rates are expected to rise in 2021, and we're already seeing that, affordability is likely to become a bigger challenge this year. The combination of intense demand and low mortgage rates has pushed home prices to levels that are making it difficult to save a down payment. Obviously, as prices go up, the more money you're going to have to save for your down payment, even at the 3% or 3.5% that is required on a conventional or FHA loan for the minimum down payment. This is where down payment assistance is really going to be key and even a bigger player in the future. So our down payment assistance is put together with our first mortgage program, and it's a second mortgage. It's a market rate DPA, so it is not a standalone DPA. They have to get our first mortgage program to utilize our down payment assistance. The rate is at the same interest rate as the first, so whatever interest rate they lock in on the first with us, the second down payment assistance loan is at the same rate. It's a 10-year term, and it's amortized just like a regular loan. The maximum down payment assistance for an FHA is the lesser of 3.5% of the sales price, or $7,500. So when combined with the FHA first mortgage, they're getting all of their minimum required investment of the 3.5% and able to basically get in with 100% loan. On a conventional, it's the lesser of 3% of the sales price, or $7,500. So on the conventional, on the HFA Advantage program, it is a 97% LTV first, and then a 3% second. What I will say is a lot of folks, there's a couple different caveats here. If you have a homeowner or a home buyer that is looking to purchase and they have a down payment, but they are eligible for our conventional loan and they have an income that's 80% or below, they can still save money by doing the Alabama Housing First Mortgage Conventional Freddie Mac program, because they're going to be able to get the charter level MI, so the 18% mortgage insurance. They have no upfront mortgage insurance like they would on an FHA loan. And the mortgage insurance obviously is eligible to be canceled after the house gets to an 80% LTV, whereas with an FHA loan, it's for the entire life of the loan. So you don't have to utilize the down payment assistance program, but you can. Also, they're eligible if they're at 80% or below for the AIS grant. For our step-up program, we have very few overlays. As I said before, you're going to follow your standard underwriting guidelines. Our only overlays are this. Obviously, it's our mission to serve low and moderate income Alabamians. Our qualifying income for the program, so we do have a maximum qualifying income. And when I say qualifying income, what I'm talking about is the income that your underwriter is going to use to qualify the borrower for repayment purposes. So any non-occupying or non-borrowing spouse or adult children in the home, those types of things, that is not income that would be included in what we consider our qualifying compliance income. Our maximum income is $130,600 annually, so that's an annualized amount. On the conventional, obviously for the 80% or below, it's going to be the 80% or below of the area median income. And for those over 80%, again, it would be the $130,600. The FICO, minimum FICO for FHA and conventional 80% AMI or below is 640. And for those that are over 80% AMI and going to go conventional, it's a 680 FICO. Maximum debt to income is 45%. So that's our program in a nutshell. If you have any questions or wanting more information, our business development manager is Kathy James. Tony Lee is our business development specialist and our master of ceremonies here today. And our website is listed below in our phone number. We all have the same phone number here. We have a receptionist that answers the phone. So if you want to talk to one of us, and we would be happy to talk to you if you want to call, just ask for one of us here. One thing I wanted to point out too is Kathy is accredited through the State Realtors Association to be able to offer continuing education classes for credits, and we do that at no charge in partnership with local real estate committees and offices. So if you're interested in hosting one of those classes, please let her know. And Tony also does a lot of training, and hopefully soon we'll be able to offer more trainings in person for anyone that you would like to be able to do lunch and learns, home buyer education, anything like that. We'll be available to do that with you and partner with you on that. All right, Tony, are we ready for Q&A?
I think we are. And if I can find the chat box. We did have one for Tom. We actually had two. One of them said, when you say little bigger or little smaller, how much bigger and smaller in square foot?
Yeah, I mentioned that like 10 or 15% to start with. Like I said, you don't want to get too much bigger or too much smaller, because then the difference is going to be too large. If you can't find 10 or 15, maybe go 20, 25, but I definitely wouldn't go more than that. I think that it's possible if you go and look in other competitive market areas, like I mentioned, that you would probably be able to meet the 10 or 15% guidelines, but for sure 20 to 25.
Okay. And then we had one more. It said, how do you appraise land and acres with a property?
With the house, you think that that's what they're talking about with the house?
Yeah, I'm thinking with the house.
Okay. Well, within the appraisal, we have several different approaches to value. We look at the cost approach, which means we look at a depreciated cost of construction, considering the house in its current condition, along with what land is available for sale or have recently sold for right now. And we combine that together for the cost approach. And then we also look at the sales comparison approach, where we look at different properties. And acreage on a property is one of those things that we bracket that I was talking about. So if you have a property with 10 acres, you could bracket that by looking at, maybe sales that have 8 to 12 acres or something like that. It probably wouldn't be smart to use, 20 or 30 acres because the adjustments would be too large. But we just compare like properties to each other. So we would use sales that had similar acreage.
Okay. That's all the questions I see. If anybody else has any questions, they can feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll be glad to let the presenters know. We also are going to have a giveaway.
Tony, this is Carrie. I'm going to ask a few questions real quick.
Okay.
I have a couple that I had prepared for some of the folks and some that came up while I was listening to everyone talk. In this first question, I'm going to ask Stuart. And my question is, Stuart, the numbers that you shared on the month supply are obviously very low. What is considered a normal number of months of supply as far as available listings that we would look for to kind of have like a what we'd call 50-50 buyer-seller market?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question, Carrie. And so most real estate professionals look at 6 months of supply as the equilibrium point where buyers and sellers have roughly equal bargaining power. So 7 or more months of supply being a buyer's market, and 5 or fewer months of supply, a seller's market. So statewide, we're looking at about 2 months of supply now. So definitely, a strong seller's market at the statewide level.
And I have a question for Blake. I know you mentioned there's a lot of headwind, obviously, that we're all facing, especially home builders in Alabama. And a lot of the issue that we've had, I think even pre-COVID, we've all known that one of the ways to continue to see an increase in affordability is new home construction, more actual units and inventory, and creating more housing is going to be vital to that. But there's a lot of challenges associated with that. One of the things, that was really a big focus even before COVID was the lack of qualified labor. And so it's really interesting and promising to hear that Home Builders Association of Alabama is working to help increase that with trade schools. How are some of the, as far as information on folks that would maybe want some more information on how that program's working, or talk about bringing it to their markets, who would they contact for that?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Carrie. Yeah, we're seeing that need, like you said, and we're actively pursuing those kids to give them a path to success in life. But yeah, if they want to contact me, I can share my contact information, or you can, Carrie, or the Home Builders Association of Alabama, right there next to the Housing Finance Authority. We'd love to come talk to people. I'm the current state president for the Home Builders, so I'm traveling a lot around the state this year and talking to our local associations. I'd be happy to come talk to any association that's interested in workforce type development. So we've got a few programs here in Tuscaloosa that are successful. Huntsville, Mobile, the larger metros have kind of adopted it, Birmingham. But yeah, I'll be happy to come speak with any group and, maybe grab somebody from the Home Builders Association staff and come talk to them about how, what that looks like from a funding, but also like a staffing perspective. So thanks, Carrie.
Yes, thank you. And so the next question is for Tom. And I actually have two questions for you, and one of them hopefully will be kind of lighthearted, but I think about it all the time. And when you were talking earlier, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to ask him now that I've got an appraiser to ask what he thinks. What do we think of, and I'm not going to use the website's name, I'll use something that rhymes with it. It rhymes with willow. What do we think of those values?
Well, they're about worth what you pay for them, in my mind. And let me explain that. As I was talking earlier about accurate square footage, I think square footage has a lot to do with values that those types of websites have, and I'll explain why. So those types of websites are pretty good at reporting like actual sales prices of properties, because that information is in public records. But then they take that sale price, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll calculate what the property sold for on a price per square foot basis. So if they use county records, which is typically where they get their square footage information, which can be wrong, and they divide the sale price by the square footage, then they can get a price per square foot that's could be wrong. Then they take those price per square foot and apply it to another property to try to get that estimate. So then you're doubling up on the inaccuracies. So unless there's very good high conformity within a neighborhood, I don't believe that those websites are that accurate. They actually do give, like in the bottom of the website, you can click on some link and it'll tell you how accurate they are in different areas. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hit or miss, really.
The next question that I had is, in your presentation, you talked about superior quality of construction costing more, and would for a realtor to kind of, discuss with their buyer, are you, would you be willing to pay more if you knew the quality of construction was better? Can you give, and that's something that I think a lot of, especially first-time home buyers, aren't really as aware of. It's one of those things, I don't think they're always as aware of what maintenance costs are going to be on a home, wear and tear, some of the big ticket items that can go out and things like that. What are some of the things or the key elements a buyer should always look for in quality that could be money savers down the road?
When you say money savers, you're probably talking about a property holding its value or whatever. But I think, the higher quality items are probably going to be more durable. Like, for example, hardwoods or, tile floors or something like that is probably going to be more durable than a vinyl or a carpet or something like that. So those are things to consider. I always, then you can think about, how the property's value is going to hold its value as well. And I always tell people that whenever you're looking at the different finishes that you put in the house, you should always look to see what is typical in the neighborhood. And try to stay within maybe a range of that. For example, if most homes in a neighborhood have hardwoods and tile or something like that, it probably wouldn't be wise to have vinyl and carpet, because those might be considered, a lesser quality compared to what's normal in the neighborhood, and that property may appraise and sell for less because of that, because of the difference in quality. So I think it's kind of like a twofold question there, because you got to think about how the materials and the quality of construction is going to help the property hold its value, and then you also have to think about the maintenance that you're talking about too.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question. It looks like it came in from the area, and this is for you, Tom. How can a realtor help the appraiser with information for an accurate appraisal? And this is a good question because I know when I was a lender and underwriter, that was a question that came up a lot as far as still being able to maintain, the arm's length that you need to for the integrity of the appraisal itself and not stepping, over any boundaries, but still, really helping the appraiser with the information they need.
Right. Yeah. This is something that I like to communicate with agents is that, we can have communication and speak back and forth, but we just can't discuss value. So what I always recommend is that, if an agent has done their homework in pricing a property, they've probably done a CMA and they've probably gotten their own comparables. They've compiled a list of, a brag sheet, so to speak, that they might provide to a potential buyer that gives the updates that a home has had and maybe the features that the home has had and even the features or, the positives of the neighborhood. So I always recommend that they share that with the appraiser. I just call it a realtor packet, so to speak, that they can give that information about the upgrades, the features, and that type of thing to the appraiser. They can provide the sales that they used. I don't think it's necessary to talk value because, the information will speak for itself, but I always, recommend that they share that with the appraiser to help, kind of let the appraiser kind of know where they were coming from when they were pricing the property. Then the appraiser can check out, like maybe the sales that they used, to see if that the appraiser can use those sales, because sometimes, like I said before, those comps or those properties may just be sales. They may not be comps. So the appraiser has to qualify those sales to make sure that they're comps, but definitely provide that information to them. I think that's very helpful.
All right, fantastic. I guess next thing we need to do is the fun part, Tony.
Yep. It's time for the giveaway. And this is the giveaway. We're going to ask a question, and the first person to answer the question will get this nice espresso machine. And we're going to take the top three. So the top one gets this, and the number 2 and number 3 will get the grab bag with our swag in it. So the question, and just put your answers in the chat box. And the question is, what is the name of Alabama Housing Finance Authority's DPA program? Is it Step In, Step Up, Move In, Move Up, or none of the above?
All right. It looks like Jessica Giada. Sorry if I'm slaying your name, I apologize. Is our first place winner. Melanie Mullins will get a swag bag, and Susan Thomas will get a swag bag. Your email that you registered with is how we'll reach out to you. If you don't hear from us by this afternoon, because we'll get your address and we'll send the package to you. If you don't hear from Tony by this afternoon, you can reach out to him at tlee@ahfa.com, and we'll get with your contact information and address, and we'll get that stuff shipped out to you. I want to thank everyone for participating today. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of good information, and we thank you for taking time to be with us. And thank you so much to all of our speakers. It was a huge success. So thank you. You all have a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.